All right, here we go. Okay. Is it a hump or a drop? What do you say? You got to twist your words in every which way, because the motto will always dictate what you do. Everybody knows that you've got the model affliction blues. Is it a straight line or does it curve? Some people unclamp it, but that is absurd. We all know that the model will always dictate what you do. Everybody knows that you are model afflicted blue. Model affliction. It's your addiction. That model affliction. It brings you so much pain. It's your ball and chain. Conflating curvature with elevation change has got your local distance just out of range. That old biggie is gonna dictate everything that you do. And everybody knows that you got the model affliction blue. It's your decision defending the model position. You just don't know the geometric proposition. That old ball, it'll always be illogical to you. That's why perpendicularity is a puzzle to you. Model affliction. It's your addiction. Model affliction. It brings you so much pain. It's your ball and chain.
World fame. And we are live. Welcome everyone. It is Model Affliction Monday. Not going to be too many more of these, I don't think. Well, we might keep hold of Mondays and Fridays. Let people know that, you know, you can come round, come and have a chat anytime. I'm going to be going and having a chat with a few people, hopefully. Coming up in the near future. Right, we're going to go over tonight. I mean, we were rudely interrupted on Friday by Chaiki. We were trying to go over an argument that Betty's brought. Betty's perpendicular argument. He has just updated it. Let me just go and have a look, because he sent me a new one, an updated version. Here is the full argument with definitions and all premises supplied. It's a little bit too big for one page on my phone. Let me have a look. What's it on? This one on Monday. Quite a few comments. Dated. Read more. There you go. Full argument below. Let me just. Might need somebody else to get this. It's not too bad. My screen's going into thingy mode. Can you guys see that? Is that good? He's redefined the shit out of this, but it's genius. Zero elevation he's added in. Thinking in an attempt to falsify Euclid. Do you see how it's changed? No. Right, here's the. And here's the one from 2 days ago. So we've got two different arguments, I think. They both claim to be the full argument. Here is the full argument. Does anybody want to check them? Anybody in the Discord or anything? Want to have a go over all of those? There's two arguments there. From Beddy, we call the perpendicular argument. He's brought, but he's added two very tricky words in the use of this. So, I mean, does anybody care to...
Longitude, latitude?
Yeah. It's got there. Definition 1. A line of longitude is a set of points of zero elevation and the same angle of latitude. Longitude. Zero elevation. Line of longitude is a set of points of zero elevation and the same angle of longitude.
I don't know why you put an angle in there, do you?
Well, I don't know why he's got an angle, because a longitude. And he says a line of latitude is a set of points of zero elevation and the same angle of latitude.
Can we dig into those definitions for a moment?
Well,
Please, yes.
I can see where he's going with this straight away, but
yeah, but I mean, it's important probably to state, to dig into the definition and be able to come to terms. Remember, it was one of our things very early on in the Organon, is being able to come to terms.
Yeah.
So a line, is there? I imagine that we're in some way going to be talking about lines, because it says a line, and then it also says angle. So we have angle and we have line. So to me, immediately, I'm thinking there's a geometric element to this. Does anybody disagree with that? There's a geometric element.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So does Does anybody want to pull up the definition of a line and read it? Because I believe there is an already established definition of a line
I think.
in Euclid's Elements.
I think I can do one better. I think I've got Wolfram Alpha, and that's much better for these certain people.
Great.
A line in geometry is straight.
A line is a straight one-dimensional figure having no thickness and extending infinitely in both directions. A line is sometimes called a straight line, or more archaically, a right line, to emphasize that it has no wiggles anywhere along its length. That'd be a line is a straight one-dimensional figure. Straight one-dimensional figure.
And
that's a line.
Yeah, it's
right?
worth pointing out that a line has changed its meaning. Well, Euclid defined a line within 2 points.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what they're talking about here. That's now called a line segment. So Euclid was talking about line segments. This just has a little arrow at either end. There's no point to mark its extremities, this line.
Okay.
It's infinite.
Is there a requirement given in these two definitions other than the naming of longitude and latitude? Let's set that aside for the moment. Is there something else that gives us an idea of a description of the lines that are being discussed? Would zero elevation have any? Yeah. What effect would that have on the line?
Make it straight, wouldn't it?
So then it's a line at a certain position.
Yeah, right. So are we? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sergak.
Would it be an idea to go over what Euclid defined as a line beforehand, before we move on? Because I guess you would have to go over the first 4 definitions within Euclid if you wanted to do that.
I think
might be good.
Because of the idea of the line segment, I just want to avoid confusion.
There you go. So there's the first 4.
Yeah, that's good, because I'm thinking in this case specifically of the second one, that a line is length without breadth doesn't necessarily mean a line segment.
Yes. But like the extremities of a line are points, is the bit that deviates, right? It's just I suppose it is. That's the line, and he then defines it in order to be straight, perhaps, for you to. But yeah, that's the land of wiggle room, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like in order to, Euclid puts it in axiomatic form, so he builds upon it, true definitional style.
Yes.
Whereas,
clearly,
they say that those bits before the straight line comes in doesn't say whether they're straight or not. Well, yeah, it does. I think. It doesn't allow for a curve in there before the straight.
Definitely not. I agree.
You mean in the definitions that Betty posited, or in these 4 definitions here?
I mean, in these definitions here now, there is
okay.
Because it doesn't say that it's straight at 2. It doesn't mean that you can have a curve in there. It doesn't mean that that's a wiggly line, as defined in the Wolfram Alpha, right? A line has no wiggles. That's that line defined there, length without breadth. That's a straight line. It's just not been defined as straight yet because the conditionals haven't been placed in there.
It's the categorization, I would say, in terms of genus and species.
And I think that's a very important point that we shouldn't overlook, right? Saragaki, exactly what you just said, is Euclid, I believe, would have needed to make a clarification or make it absolutely clear what he was speaking about it Yeah, and these people of these times would have had a knowledge of genus and species. In fact, they would have been categorizing things in that way just by habit. We don't do that, right? We don't tend to do that today, modern day.
This would have been
No,
the grammar of the trivium, right? The how
Correct.
to define things and how to build the knowing of things and associate one thing to another.
It would have
Mhm.
to have been, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
back to the first two definitions that Betty posited here. We also have zero elevation applied to both of those two definitions. So now we're looking at adding elevation as a descriptor to the line.
Mm-hmm. But the
Which also
line is only a set of points of where
Mhm.
angles are measured.
Yes. And that's where angle comes in, right? Angle is at the end of each of those definitions. And an angle is what? According to, do we have a definition for an angle?
Don't know whether I've got a definition of an. I've got an angle.
Would it be a rectilinear angle? Is there any other kind of an angle? Again, just to come to terms, to be clear.
Yeah, you straight lines. Parts of an
Two
angle.
two straight lines. I've got one here. What is an angle? An angle is formed when two straight lines or rays meet at a common end point.
A vertex.
That's the
Vertex.
one that first came up. You know, as
Yeah.
a.
So seems like the angle is referring to straight lines. Zero elevation, to be fair, could you say is alluding to straight line?
I
It's
would
just
say
a
zero
point on a
elevation.
vertical datum that it's completely. This is his game, I think. He's trying to associate it to a plane.
Right, without regard to Betty's
Yeah.
intent, though, like
Mm.
how would we take it, right? Because this was apparently not only his argument, right, but apparently, according to some, a challenge to certain people as well. But if I'm looking at this, if it's not my argument, if I'm reading an argument of someone else's, I can, unless we've come to terms, I can only take from it what I mean it to be with my understanding. And so again, for me, and this is just me, I look at the words a line and I think straight line. I look at the words zero elevation in regard to the line and I reinforce straight line. And then I look at the word angle, which I know are two straight lines. I don't see how I can read it any other way other than the lines that are spoken of are straight lines, without regard to the two words that are being used in those definitions, which I know people are going to say, yeah, but.
Well, see, this is where I would have to come in with, right, a triangle consists of three angles. So
Yes.
at each of those points, you can measure an angle.
Yes.
Right now, that's 3 points. Like
Yes.
he says, that where angles are measured.
Yes.
Right now, you can join those points up. But is
Yes.
that line a straight line?
It has to be, because as you
Well,
said,
no, I mean, in between the points, yes. But if you're taking it as a whole, it's just a point where an angle is measured, and another point where an angle is measured, and another
Yes.
point where an angle is measured. Does
Yes.
that make it a straight line?
yes,
Not well.
say
Hang on a
yes.
second. Okay, so paper votes yes.
but
I-
I have explanation why.
Okay, hang on a second. But I would vote. I don't have enough information, because if those three angles are taken separately and not part of a triangle, then no, not necessarily.
Yes, I would say necessarily, because
If they're not part of a triangle, paper.
it doesn't matter.
Well-
Bev said points where angles are measured.
Right, yeah, okay, but
In
wait a
order
minute,
to-
wait a minute. Betty said 0.
Zero elevation.
Where can you measure that 0 elevation? Where can you measure an angle at that 0 elevation, as Beddy claims?
This is
Cannot.
this is azimuthal angle on horizontal
Not
plane.
zero. Not zero. You can't measure a zero angle.
Can't get to 0. You can't even get to 0 when you go to the bolt to see the mean sea level at 0, because the 0's down where the water is.
There is no angle to 0.
No.
You can't get to that point to measure an angle from there.
To measure an angle, you need two straight lines, and just by virtue of having two straight lines, it must be greater than 0. It has to be greater than 0. The angle has to be greater than 0.
And the angle, if the angle has to be measured to a light in the sky, how do you get to 0 to lay your baseline for your angle to then be able to? Because anywhere inland at 0, you'd be lower. I mean, what would you be looking at? A wall of the hole that you've just dug.
Mm-hmm.
How do you measure an angle to anything from in there? Beddy's shot himself in the foot, right? Admittedly. He's laid out something that can't be done as an impossibility. But, like I said, just an equal. Like, you have to have a line horizontal from A to B. You've got a difference of the angle at A to B, according to these things, for 1 degree for 69 miles, right? That's the difference. But yeah, he's took a line straight of longitude, is a set of 0 points of 0 elevation at the same, well,
Yeah, I would say it has to be a horizontal plane, since all points within a horizontal plane are all at an equal elevation. So if the elevation is 0, then that goes for all the points, meaning they all lie in a horizontal plane in this case.
I would say the same, but there seems to be Beddy's laying out this logic for that. Like, I think he might have just caught you in his trap, even though it's not much of a trap because it's a horizontal plane of reference, right? No slope, neither higher nor lower at each end or any point in between.
That would be your 0 elevation.
Yeah.
But I would
elevation change from that 0 elevation would occur on something without a slope.
Right?
I would say this seems like adding unnecessary and unrelated information in the definition. Like, I don't see how it's relevant at this point.
If anybody wants to try now, try Google latitude, longitude, a line of latitude, a line of longitude, and see whether you can find a definition that agrees with Beddy's definition 1 and 2. Because he might have just made up a specific definition for himself for this argument.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah. I've never heard 0 elevation linked to latitude and longitude before, but hey.
Well, I do get a kind of contradictory definition when I do search line of latitude definition. It says an imaginary line around the Earth parallel to the equator. It seems like a bit of a self-contradictory definition to me. And doesn't necessarily fit what Bebby has wrote in his definition.
Horizontal slices, though, yeah. I mean, that's what I keep being told. Horizontal slices. Which would make them parallel, geometrically. Parallel horizontal slices.
Yeah, okay. So the line then in this case would be the extremity of a circular plane, all the planes being horizontal planes and therefore parallel planes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go with
like
that, yeah.
like contour lines on the map.
Yeah. It's just a way of imagining it. Right then, this is his argument, right? Once you've took on his definitions, we then go on to his argument. Which one have I got here? The old one? Yes, I'm on the old one here. I don't know whether it's changed.
I prefer old one because it has some semblance to argument. Because this, what it is presented now, for me, it is not an argument.
What, just the one that just ends at 5?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is just not an argument, because argument has two premises and conclusion. And in first version, he had that. But now he is making some definitions. He is referring to them. This is, for me, it doesn't look like you can create argument from that, but the job is yours, not his. But in previous syllogism, he brought syllogism. So I would say completely invalid formally and materially invalid also. But this is not an argument. This previous one had semblance to argument because had some form of argument, two premises, middle term, and conclusion. But this is, I cannot see where is middle term, where is first premise, most general premise, where it is. I cannot see that here.
Points of an equal elevation form a plane. Are you happy with that?
Yes,
That's interesting, yeah.
okay, but so second, if this sentence with number 1 is premise, so second has to have the same adjective or predication.
Is he saying then that lines of longitude and latitude are lying on that plane because they're straight?
No. Okay, but it doesn't say that. So yes, they are. This is true statement or presumably true statement, but it is not related to first sentence. Because you can ask, so what? What follows from these two sentences? What conclusion? And this conclusion should be in third sentence. And in the third sentence, we have all lines of longitude. So we have categorical statement in conclusion. Now, this is completely invalid because if you start with a major premise, you have to have this all lines being in first sentence, in first premise, because this is major premise. So for me, it is not an argument, just a set of sentences. You can create from that maybe argument, but I don't think that he's creating argument from that, and I cannot see that here.
So what was an argument has turned into a not argument.
I would say that, yes. He corrected that because maybe he took into consideration what I said, because it is invalid, and I can prove again that this is completely invalid, his first argument. But it had form of argument, two premises and conclusion. Invalid, but still you may say that this is syllogism. But here we can see that set of sentences, and he's reversing the whole job of creating argument on us here. And this is created in that way that you can derive, I would say, many things here. And I cannot see his conclusion, what he was going to prove here.
Well, there's a trap being laid, isn't there? It's got a very, very cunning trap.
I would say that, and this trap was also in first, let's say, original argument, and he started from lines of longitude and latitude, and then in premise 2 he referred to Euclid's elements, proposition 28, which should be first premise, because in this second premise, being middle term, was all lines which are perpendicular, are parallel, etc. So this is categorical statement. And in second premise, when he's talking about longitude and latitude lines, it doesn't follow from premise 1. That should be premise 1. So it is completely non sequitur. So he cannot prove that, because I think his aim was that lines of longitude and latitude are perpendicular without being straight, because it would be conclusion from his original syllogism. But from this, I would say I cannot see how can he prove that lines of latitude and longitude are perpendicular and curved at the same time.
No, he puts it there straight.
If they are straight, so
this is why I wondered why he was bringing it, because he puts in it that they are straight.
If they are straight, so I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he's talking about that, because it has nothing to do with his globe model.
If they're let me remind Globe for a second. If they're straight, and Betty admits they're straight, doesn't that have implications geometry? Like they have to adhere to the perpendicularity or the parallel if in fact they're straight?
That's his
Doesn't
argument.
it have to adhere to that?
Yeah, that's the argument that he brought. The moment he says perpendicular, he says straight. He says plane rectilinear angle. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, and they have to be on the same plane. So they are normal.
Yeah, it's within Euclidean. Like it's a plane rectilinear angle. It has to be on a plane. It's a plane rectilinear angle. But he's being within the confines anyway. He doesn't need to state it. But like he's the one that brought the longitude and latitude as straight. We did a poll last week on Friday to are longitude and latitude straight, perpendicular. We said, and 60% said yes. They are perpendicular. So 60% of people agree that they are perpendicular, meaning straight, plane rectilinear angles, right angles. All right angles are equal. It's an axiom of every geometry. There's no geometry, even the ones that don't exist, that don't have right angles being equal. Every one of them has that. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why. He's still never answered why he's brought this logic. Like, as far as I can see, that we have the ability, or I know I do. It's an argument. I just take it as an argument. Betty's bringing an argument. He's a logician. I mean, which philosophers aren't allowed to bring arguments, and which arguments are allowed and which arguments aren't allowed? They're all to be put up under scrutiny. So that's what Betty's done. He's obviously getting in the spirit of passing arguments on from one side to the other and rebutting them. Because a rebuttal is a proof, you know. It's just as much as a proof as the original argument, if you can rebut it. You can undo what somebody believed was their argument and present a proof that that argument is fallacious. So if anybody wants to come and present any evidence or any reasoning for why Betty's argument is fallacious, or maybe just his use of grammar, maybe his self-defined definitions at the beginning. Like Paper said, I mean, Rumpus says that Paper doesn't know what an argument is, so Rumpus obviously can offer up some supporting evidence to go with this argument that Betty's brought. To think about longitude and latitude being straight.
I can, let's say, because starting from third sentence marked as 3, all lines of longitude are perpendicular to at least one line of latitude. That kind of sentence could be first premise being major premise, because it has all. So he's talking about all lines of longitude. But in fourth sentence, he's saying any straight lines. So he's referring to Euclid. I would still replace 3 with 4, because any straight line, it means all straight lines, in fact. So we have 2 categorical statements here. In sentence number 3, all lines of longitude, it is categorical statement. And in sentence number 4, any straight lines on a plane, etc. This is also categorical statement. I would replace, if I would create a syllogism, because any straight lines is more general statement than all lines of longitude, because straight lines are more broad sense. It is larger collection, let's say. So lines of longitude are in collection of all straight lines. That's why I would say that it is better to create first premise being major premise. And from that, therefore, lines of longitude are parallel to each other. So that would be a conclusion. So, but this is what I am doing. This is not maybe what Debbie is doing. I just can create an argument in that way from all of these sentences, because we need three premise. First premise being major premise, second premise being connection between the first premise and conclusion. And yes, that would be that. Pretty much the same as first argument, but with this exchange, first premise instead of second, and vice versa. And that would be that for me. Only these three sentences.
Yeah,
3, 4, 5. Or rather 4, 3, 5.
I don't think Betty's going to fix his logic for you, though, Paper.
Maybe, I don't know, but still, she doesn't need to make these definitions and other derivation or further conclusion from that, because therefore is in a fifth sentence. So we have conclusion.
Yeah, he's sort of in the similar grounds to QE with his attempt at a modus tollens. The one he calls the Black Swan, rather grandiose. Rather akin to Beddy's argument here. I mean, Saragaki, if you want a proper perpendicular argument, then you make the perpendicular argument and you just replace longitude and latitude. So there's not much use rewriting the perpendicular argument around your definitions that end up with basically the perpendicular argument. He's already said he used proposition 28 anyway.
Yes, so for me, an argument in this form, if then, would be if any straight lines on a plane perpendicular to a third line on the same plane are parallel to each other, and all lines of longitude are, and if all lines of longitude are perpendicular to at least one line of latitude, therefore lines of longitude are parallel to each other. That would be, for me, a valid and true argument.
Well, now you've just made an argument, so
yeah.
But
I'm conjuring.
That's not Beddy's argument. You were trying to fix Beddy's argument with your understanding of what you thought Beddy meant.
No, I am saying, this is me. I am from hold this page, I can see on the screen, I can create that kind of argument. But this is me. I am creating that argument from given sentences.
Rumpus has got a different type of logic because he's a logic expert as well, you know. He's out there crying that he can't post pictures.
So, he's not just an expert in logic. He's self-proclaimed expert in everything.
Yeah, and we know what that means.
To be clear.
Yeah. That means
he's talking about propositional logic. I am not using any propositional logic.
Yeah, but he's claimed to be an expert in everything, which means he's a bullshitter. Just telling you, he's a bullshitter.
And I can explain why that kind of sentences and why in that order. Because, as I said, major premise first, all straight lines, because any straight lines, it means the same as all straight lines. It is major premise and perpendicular to a third line. And in third sentence, we have lines of longitude perpendicular to latitude. So we have this connection with predication, because predication is being perpendicular. So, and this third sentence, which has to be middle term, that would be this connection, perpendicularity. Because in first premise, my first premise, in fourth sentence, perpendicular to a third line on the same plane are parallel to each other, so it is like a proof. And conclusion wants to refer to first premise, because if we are creating syllogism, in the end we can throw out middle term, and we can just create a simple if-then sentence. So therefore lines of longitude are parallel to each other. This is conclusion, and this is in middle term, that perpendicular to a third line are parallel to each other. So we have this connection between first premise and conclusion. So we can let's say, yes, we can do that. If then if any straight lines on the plane perpendicular to a third line on the same plane are parallel to each other, then or therefore lines of longitude are parallel to each other. And of course, I am not mentioning middle term. But of course,
yeah, Beddy's middle term is proposition 28.
it is wrong. It cannot be. It cannot be middle term.
Beddy's middle term. Premise 2.
Yes.
Beddy's premise 2 was originally proposition 28.
And in that order, on this in this version of that, this middle term is still here as middle term. So that's why I said that I would exchange sentence number 3 with sentence number 4, because sentence number 4 creates major premise, because this statement is major to the third, because all lines of longitude, as I said, are smaller collection, and they belong to greater collection of all straight lines. That's why you should exchange these two sentences. So a syllogism should start with sentence 4, any straight lines, etc. Then we have middle term, all lines of longitude are perpendicular, etc. There, and conclusion, therefore lines of longitude are parallel to each other. That would be, let's say, plausible.
He's got two premises and a conclusion. He has changed it a little bit, and he's modified it. Are we going to allow him to modify his argument, or to sort of lure you in with an argument and then change it into a not argument for some occulted premise that wasn't there in the first place?
Syllogism cannot have occulted premises.
Well, that's where those other premises have come from, and the definitions.
Yes, but of course, syllogism can be and should be based on pre-assumptions or definitions or axioms, the best ones, but they are not part of syllogism. So if he's saying about hidden premises, it means that he is talking about paradox, because the
were you here on Friday when we went over it?
Yes, I was.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's the argument. It was premise 1, premise 2, conclusion.
Yeah.
On
And
Friday.
I am referring to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he's changed it because obviously the original argument wasn't working for him because it's basically a perpendicular argument.
Yeah.
It didn't serve his purpose. He needed to occult other premises, which doesn't mean that they were occulted in the first place. He just realized that the original argument wasn't helping him and he needed to play sophist and just change his argument.
He changed and he exchanged this, let's say, argument, invalid, but still, let's say, syllogism, kind of syllogism, into just bunch of sentences.
Yeah, he's never explained why he brought it in the first place.
You can ask him, but he's in the live chat.
I know, but he's never going to answer it. I've been asking him for 6 or 7 days now. What's the point of bringing this argument, Betty? Why? I know you've had to mess about with it and fart about with it, but still, what's the purpose of bringing it? You've caused loads of people stress. Not us.
And also, baby, on YouTube chat, paper still confuses a term with a premise. I'm asking question. This therefore is conclusion from what then?
He's just turned into a troll, text chat troll. Like, this is what happens. Can't come and talk about anything. Just turn into a text chat troll, spouting shit in the chat, just like Rumpus. Not much difference, really.
The exploded mind. That's what happened.
The point of bringing up the argument was to expose a fallacy. What, within a perpendicular argument, Betty? Or the fallacy of you not being able to make an argument and then turning the argument into a not argument to get out of it. What's the fallacy, Betty? That you're a logician? I don't get it.
Is he trying to expose a fallacy in book 1, proposition 28?
I don't know. He's going to go running now. The fallacy of concluding non-parallel, ? That's Saragaki. We don't know what the fallacy is. And if he's not going to tell us the fallacy, then what's the point of bringing the argument? It's sad. There's no fallacy in Euclid, but flat earth math sort of thinks there is. I'm pretty sure that you said that you falsified it as well. You said it must be false. If there's no fallacy in it, how can it be false?
Fallacy in first argument, this original one, is that he is misplacing first premise with the second, and vice versa. Because if you start with the proposition 28 as first premise, and in his original argument, that would be any two lines perpendicular to a third line are parallel to each other. That would be first premise, and that would be like axiom. So you cannot touch it, because in argument you are searching for middle term. You are, in fact, in that case, middle term being any two lines longitude are perpendicular to a line of latitude, that should be checked. Because if they are, I would say that they are not. And that's why I would reject whole argument.
Yeah, we've been
But
saying they're
if-
just angles. Like they're places where you measure an angle. Now,
Yeah,
they're
yes,
a
yes.
point on the ground. So if you join those points together, that's a straight line. But only as much as a side of a triangle is a straight line. They're just points where angles are measured. Upwards, outwards, not inwards, not to make a shape. Just angles, random angles.
Yes, but I'm talking just about an argument, because if someone would agree with this middle term, which is first premise, so if someone would agree that any two lines of longitude are perpendicular to a line of latitude,
It doesn't say that. It just says any two lines perpendicular to a third line are parallel to each other. In his original,
Yes.
it doesn't say latitude or longitude. He just says the geometric line.
yes, and that is premise 2 and should be premise 1. I'm talking about how to create, because you can create from that valid, let's say, formally valid argument.
Yeah, I've been saying, I've got a thing open on the chat or whatever. If anybody can think of perpendiculars that would fit this argument. Beddy's perpendicular argument works mathematically fantastically if you're talking about a diameter and tangents at each end of the diameter. They are perpendicular, yes, and they are parallel, yes. So that works. But Beddy seems to have brought an argument of perpendicular that works perfectly within Euclid, perfectly within geometry and mathematics and logic. But when you try and relate it to reality, there's a certain group of people that say no. Not those perpendiculars. They don't fit this argument. They're different perpendiculars. Literally different.
Yes, if they are different, it means that you cannot use Euclid as a reference or as a major premise, because you cannot state in first sentence that you are talking about straight lines and you, let's say, Euclidean normal perpendicularity, and in the second sentence you are talking about a different type of perpendicularity. It wouldn't create argument, because you have to have same terms, same predications.
Is perpendicular a right angle?
It has to be. And
so
it has to
all right angles are equal in every geometry.
Yeah.
Right, so you can't have them being different. There is no different perpendiculars, because all right angles are equal. Fundamental axiom.
Yes, but even if you hold that double speak position, you cannot use first meaning, normal Euclidean meaning of perpendicularity and one premise, and in second premise you are using just the same word perpendicular, but just in different meaning. You cannot do that when you are creating syllogism.
You can't do it with anyway, because perpendicular is a mathematical term. It's the same as trying to say that there's a different square or a different circle. Perpendicular is that fundamental within mathematics.
Yes, I agree. But even if there were some different kinds of perpendicularity, even if, then you cannot use this as an argument, that kind of argument as Bebby proposed. Even if they were, it would be still invalid argument, because you cannot have same predication, let's say perpendicularity, but in different meanings, two different meanings. You cannot. It is, in fact, in this argument, it is irrelevant if we have different type of perpendicularity or not. Of course, we don't have, but it doesn't matter in this argument. He's just using the same word in two different meanings. And he's not allowed to do that, creating argument. This is what I am saying. Just it.
Betty's making up bullshit in the chat again. Proper text chat troll. I'm surprised, Betty. Well, no, I'm not, to be honest. Not surprised at all. Everybody always turns into these sort of text chat trolls. Claim to be geniuses, but can't talk about anything. It's like Red's rhetoric. They can't talk about anything. They probably get too triggered. Start screaming, get angry. Let everybody see that how angry they get. Here's the problem though, right? Betty's brought a perpendicular argument. I'm going to put this on the YouTube for now. This guy called Darren has come, and obviously Betty's done his perpendicular argument. He's occulted a premise, and it says, this Darren says, by assuming we have a plane, all other geometric arguments about the nature of a plane will be true. This doesn't prove the assumption. This is not an argument about the geometry of planes. This is Betty's argument, apparently, even though plane rectilinear angles. What is required is a test of your assumption in the real world, is Betty's argument. For example, all verticals will be parallel. I don't know. Is that you might have got that from Betty. And any plane perpendicular to any vertical would be parallel to any other, which is easy to demonstrate as being false. So that's what Betty will be coming up with, right? He's got Darren to help him. And I said, I wonder if anyone has actually performed a test to assure proposition 1, book 11 is true. Because surely that's where you start. Working out to see whether all of the points lie on a plane. Like see whether the straight line lies within a plane and whether it actually moves out of the plane. You see whether a horizontal plane actually exists in reality.
And I would say that, for example, Flat Earth Charles would disagree, because he said, this Darren, which is easy to demonstrate. Flat Earth mass is saying that it is impossible to demonstrate. So if it is impossible, so not easy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who would do a test to find out whether the straight line actually lies within a plane or not? Oh yeah, that was us. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, we've already done it. But I mean, that's no big deal. Points of equal elevation form a horizontal plane, Betty. Provably so. And then Darren says, sounds like there's some ambiguity in that proposition. The proposition book 11, proposition 1, book 11. Ambiguity in it. Having said that, for every work of Euclid, hundreds of others have built on it, proved or used it in modern techniques to express them. Having said that, it doesn't change that the fact that assuming a plane will always result in you coming to the same conclusion, which is a restatement of geometric principles. What you want to think about is how to construct a proof of the assumption and how that maps to real observations. That's what you need to think about, everyone. I say 3 points can and do define a plane. That plane shape is called a triangle. That triangle will have internal angles the sum of two right angles. Do you have an argument for your rebuttal to Betty's perpendicular argument? And here's Betty again with a restatement of his argument. He's keen on it, but it's changed. Here is the full argument, because he missed the early ones.
All premises supplied. So, sorry. Two premises and conclusion. So, and we have much more sentences. Many more sentences.
Yeah, all of the occulted stuff that he'd hidden when he first brought the argument at the beginning.
And they don't belong to argument.
The Earth is a cylinder, Betty. He's lost his mind. The Earth's a cylinder, Betty. Are you sure? You've checked that through. I know. What's he up to?
I think that he was staring too many hours in to this picture of Lake Pontchartrain.
Yeah.
Yes, and because conclusion of that picture can be maybe that we live on cylindric Earth. Yes, I agree. So don't stare at that picture too many hours.
So you brought your argument, Betty, to prove that latitude and longitude aren't perpendicular. It seems like to me. But the fact that everybody seems to think that they are perpendicular leaves you in that middle ground. Are they perpendicular, Betty? Because if they're not parallel, means they're not perpendicular. Not Q, therefore not P. Modus tollens.
Yes, on cylinder you can have parallel lines, but not perpendicular, because this so-called perpendicular lines would be circles. So you cannot have that. So not cylinder. Sorry.
Well, if we're talking like generally about a cylinder, I would respectfully have to disagree with your paper, because the base of the cylinder is a circle, and you can have perpendiculars to the diameter of said circle.
Yes.
He even says that point.
Sorry, but these perpendiculars would be on different planes, according to this. Let's say if we have lines, straight lines along cylinder, they would be on different plane.
Well, consider this then, paper. You have the circle, the plane. It's horizontal. You have diameter, and you have two perpendiculars to the diameter. They would both be vertical, and they would both lie within a vertical plane.
Yes, but I think that longitude and latitude lines are considered to be on horizontal plane.
I was just talking generally about the cylinder, since you made a general statement, so I just wanted to correct that.
Yes, I would agree, but if we are talking about longitude and latitude lines, because Baby was talking about that, so that would be different plane, at least not horizontal, but it would be vertical plane. Yeah.
Right, I've took Betty's argument. He wanted us to highlight his argument. So his premise 1 is points of equal elevation form a plane. That's Betty's premise 1. You all right? Is that the one that you wanted us to look at, Betty? Because I've highlighted all of the geometric terms. Points of equal elevation form a plane. Lines are straight. Lines of longitude and latitude are straight, Betty says. But lines are straight. He wants to put longitude and latitude in there. That's up to Betty. That's Betty's choice. I've told him many times I wouldn't do that. They're angles to lights in the sky, so I don't consider them as lines. They're just point markers, location. And we could go over it, you know, like, but I'm obviously saving it when we make some videos about this sort of stuff, because this is just us talking about stuff, going over it. Proposition 3. No, premise 3. Just like, I don't know. I don't know how he works with his numbered lines. Like, I don't know, line 3. It's not really very well formed, is it?
Absolutely. This is full confusion. And I think that he, bringing this, he's trying to confuse us.
He's not trying to confuse us. He's trying to confuse his friends. Like, he's not doing it for us. He's doing this so he can try and bring himself into being a shadow giant.
Maybe, yes.
It's up to us to try and make sense of it, because I can guarantee you none of his friends are paying any attention to this at all. He's just a lonely logician with nobody to talk to, and there's no globe friends that he can do that with. I mean, sorry, dogmatic globe friends. He has to come to people that can actually understand what an argument is.
Yes, I agree. Yes, they cannot deal with that because they don't understand logic behind that.
Yeah.
And problems with that logic.
So, I mean, like, these statements, these are just statements that are rambling out of Betty's head. He's just putting random thoughts that he has and putting them down in a list. 1, points of equal elevation form a plane. 2, lines of longitude and latitude, they're straight. Well, that's up to him if he wants to put it in his argument.
No. So sorry. If we have this first, number 1, points of equal elevation form a plane, like a first premise, so we have, of course, subject, points of equal elevation, and what they are doing, forming a plane. So they are in a plane. That would be predication. So in second sentence, we have to have some link.
No. This is Betty just writing out a random list of things, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can keep going forever, right? You could just keep adding stuff to it.
I'm just showing that this is not an argument because it is missing some vital points here. So there is no connection between a sentence number 1 and sentence number 2. You have to have that connection in order to create argument, and there is no connection. So it is not premise 1, and this is not premise 2. So just random sentences. Sorry, baby.
Yeah, it's just writing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, they make no sense. Why are you writing them down, Betty? I mean, you're writing stuff down that you don't believe, or do you seriously believe all of this stuff? I mean, points of equal elevation form a plane. Well, I can go along with that, but I mean, still what Betty's writing down doesn't seem to form an argument. Lines of longitude and latitude are straight. Again, that's up to you. I wouldn't call them straight. I'd call them like angles, just position markers where you measure an angle. All lines of longitude are perpendicular to at least one line of latitude. Well, that's a geometric statement.
Yes.
Like,
And
they can't be perpendicular to another line of latitude unless they are straight.
Yes, I was going to say that if we have this third sentence as, let's say, premise, so it is included. This second statement is included, so it is implicit that they have to be straight. He doesn't need to state that in previous sentence. So this is completely redundant sentence.
Betty's Betty's impressed that I've read out his premise 1. Points of equal elevation form a plane. Well done, Betty. Nice writing it out. Yeah. And then 4, any straight lines on a plane perpendicular to a third line on the same plane are parallel to each other. Euclidean proposition 28. And now nobody's going to try and say that that isn't true, because, I mean, that'd be you trying to invalidate Euclid. And it says, therefore, lines of longitude are parallel to each other. That's Betty's logic.
Yes, and as I said, I would exchange this sentence number 4 with sentence number 3.
I wouldn't put longitude and latitude in it at all. Like I say, they're angles. But, I mean, vertical and horizontal, they are perpendicular. Right? You don't have any of the problems that you have with longitude and latitude with vertical and horizontal. Do you?
Yes, of course. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So, Betty, is that okay if we put vertical and horizontal in your perpendicular logic? Get rid of longitude and latitude because, like I say, bone of contention, I think they're just positions where you measure angles.
Yes, so that premise would be highly questionable. So many people could argue that they are not. So in fact, you cannot create really good middle term from that. Because it would be still in question. But with the horizontal and vertical, so no problem.
Yeah, all lines of vertical are perpendicular to at least one line of horizontal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lines of vertical and horizontal are straight. Oh, that fits as well. Therefore, lines of longitude, lines of horizontal are parallel to each other. I mean, that fits as well. We've got the horizontal parallel.
Yeah, yeah.
Bish bash bosh. Perpendicular logic seems to work there, Betty. So remind us again, why doesn't it work with latitude and longitude? Perhaps because they're not perpendicular. Shock horror. Being angles to lights and the time of day or whatever. I mean, this is the question I was asking, Betty. I've been asking you a long time. Why did you bring this perpendicular logic in this form with latitude and longitude? Because it's easy to dismiss longitude and latitude as not being perpendicular. With this, it's just an angle. But vertical and horizontal are perpendicular. Everybody knows that. And that can be replaced into Bedy's perpendicular logic. And like Bedy said, north, south, east, and west. They can go into this perpendicular logic. Some people even say that the longitude lines are north and south, and the latitude lines are east and west. Bedy's even said it himself. And are north, south, east, and west, are they perpendicular? Is there any sort of difference between latitude and longitude and north, south, east, and west? I'll ask that one, Bedy. Do you consider there being a difference between north, south, east, and west, and latitude and longitude? Does anybody else? Bedy won't answer any of that. Don't worry about it.
No, I think he may have gotten his answer from you. I can go along with that, and then he seemed to be happy he's gone. I think.
Yeah, somebody will have
Maybe.
made somebody making videos frantically now about the things that we say as if they matter to Bedy's logic.
Yeah. Well, and he did answer the question as to why he brought it. I don't know what it means actually. That he was trying to show a fallacy, prove a fallacy. Is that what he said? I have to
He
go
said
back.
he
and
is trying to
look
show
at
a
it.
fallacy within, I don't know, within his
I don't know what.
perpendicular logic. Within, definitely not within Euclid. So he could only have been showing us a fallacy within his textbook logic, he said. He said he got it from a textbook.
Right. He didn't say which textbook, though, right?
No, he won't show us the textbook he got it from, but yes. Apparently, there is a textbook of fallacious arguments involving latitude and longitude. Bedy's
well, he did say read it. He did say read a textbook earlier, or was that Rumpus? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that'll be Rumpus.
Blend together.
Yeah.
Read a textbook. Maybe that's the textbook. The textbook of that Bedy used.
Yeah, Bedy definitely copied his argument, perpendicular argument, from a textbook when he first initially brought us it. Said that there was an occulted premise, and now he's added a string of incoherence to just random statements about obviously model afflicted beliefs that he has. I've been watching a video. I mean, I'm in order to put this together, obviously it takes a little bit of tact, because there is it's spot on in here. Yeah. We do actually have a new tune from Spot On, which goes to show with this exactly what we were talking about. Talking about the understanding of these. I mean, I called it. Anyone ever heard of Grid North? North, south, east, and west on the grid, like grid lines. Grid north, south, and east, west on the map are actually perpendicular to each other. And like Bedy says, the consequence of that is that they are parallel, strangely enough. Another one of the instances where it does seem to work, but not in the minds of Bedy and his brotherhood. The faithful, monadic, dogmatic believers.
Yeah, it can work only if this map is flat, let's say. So cannot be sphere. because on the sphere they would be not parallel and perpendicular because they would be curved.
Yeah, grid system, squares have opposite sides that are parallel to each other. It's a well-known thing about squares and rectangles. They have perpendicular, where the sides meet, they meet perpendicular. And in fact, that's one of the things that does fit Bede's perpendicular argument. The sides of a square that meet together, they meet perpendicularly, and they are parallel to the other one that meets perpendicularly. Most people know what a square looks like. Well, that's Bede's perpendicular argument when it's working properly with perpendiculars. This is the formulation of an argument, a real argument that Bede's brought for us. I notice we do have dearth in here. This is perhaps the best argument. It's not as good as the argument, but it leads backwards, right? For the advanced simplicity works backwards from this point. How do you know it's straight to start off with? Because in order for you to know perpendicular, you have to know it's straight to start off with. You can't have perpendicular without a straight. The necessity is the straight line for you to have the ability of being able to make a perpendicular to it. If it's not straight, you can't have a perpendicular to it. You can only have a perpendicular to a straight. I think that's what Bede's forgetting about. The basic grammar at the heart of this. Step back to find a straight line. But this is just the perpendicular argument. The one that gives you the cause to take that step back to find out the truth of the statement. Is it perpendicular? How do you know what perpendicular is? Does everyone want to have a quick break? Let me just check to see what this is. Let's see if Spot On's all right with it.
All right, Beth. Yeah, I'm in, mate.
Are you all right with your tune to go out?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, give it a go.
Sweet. Now this is just a random tune. One of our friends, Spot On. Go on, you want to introduce it?
No, not really. You can do that. You do it better than I do.
Music.
I'll let it introduce itself.
Okay. I'm going to nip off to go and get a brew quick. This is brilliant. I've heard it so many times. It is good. Right, so Spot On's made a tune. Just putting a few beats together. Needed some lyrics. Just found an old video. Placed it on top of it.
That's exactly how it went.
Yeah, simple as that. Here we go.
Surveyor's life has often been fraught with hardship and danger.
The federal land that we know of as the Western Territory began when Congress first established the rectangular survey system. Congress, when they started to acquire the land in the Western Territories in the 1800s, had to develop a way of settling that land. When they went out and on top of a high knoll, they established an initial point. From that initial point, they drew a direct east-west line and a direct north-south line.
Okay, I'm going to get that back. Well, if you're listening to it on YouTube, you're probably a little bit behind. Do you reckon to that then? I think that's absolutely fucking brilliant. I like it. It's like I was saying, it's like Paul Hardcastle.
That was really good stuff. Spot on.
Indeed,
Well done.
yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Yeah, I was quite happy with it, and I just got to say thanks to Bev for putting the visuals on there, because it just, he just does his thing and pulls it together. So yeah, thanks.
Well,
I enjoyed making it. It was
it's from the same video that you took the clips from, so all of the same stuff.
yeah. It's perfect, mate. I definitely couldn't have done it better. I'm pretty sure of that. You've had a lot of practice, so yeah, you did a good job on that. But I enjoyed making it. Yeah, it was like a first, really.
Gadget says it reminds him of 19.
I don't really hear it in it, to be honest.
not?
I normally pick up on many tracks, yeah, but I haven't heard that song for a while, I must say. But
Yeah,
I'll check it. I suppose it's got that feeling.
Well, again,
19.
the video that comes from is that 1 square mile. I think that 1 square mile each. That really hits home. Well,
Yeah.
square mile. They're parallel sides. The traditional surveyors of 1785, when they were laying out townships in America, they did that. 6 by 6. Why do you think that they use 6 by 6? It's weird. So that's spot ons. If you want to listen to it, it's on the I've put it on the Buster Music playlist. I've not actually released it as a song or anything. We'll see how it went down. Everyone thinks it's all good. I'll just release it. Spot On's Music, Baseline, 1785. Cool name. All in-house music.
That was great. 1785, though. I mean, that was. They didn't have GPS back then, did they?
No, I mean, like, it goes back earlier than that, but
Interesting that.
Yeah, the history of these sort of things. I mean, it's well worth looking into. Obviously, you can look into the history of how these things work, and if they were making squares in 1785, then, and it said the baseline was east-west, not north-south. Somebody said that was interesting. You start off with your east-west baseline, then make your perpendiculars from there. So I see Betty has gone. Thank you very much for leaving us, Betty. This is what Betty's been doing for a while. He delivered T-shirt logic to Bob Bob. I think he just looks at the moon. Flat moon Bob. I did hear he was He was a doctor, but he doesn't seem to be much of a doctor anymore. Just Bob. Call him Flat Moon Bob. Yeah, Beddy took T-shirt logic, which was obviously the parallels, the horizontals are parallel. He took that over to Bob's and decided to draw a cross on a piece of paper. So that one never got rebutted. And this one at the minute, the perpendicular argument that Beddy's brought is now having to be refuted by well, some strange, let me get this, so we've got the perpendicular argument. Put it up again. It says at the bottom that there's a sophist challenge to try to think where this argument wouldn't apply. Which perpendiculars can you add to this argument that deny the consequent, but you still know that they're perpendiculars? Which perpendiculars can you have where two straight lines are perpendicular to another straight line, but not parallel? That's the key thing you're looking for. You're looking for perpendiculars that aren't parallel. I would suggest there probably isn't many. It's a Model Affliction Monday, and don't know, has anybody got anything else? Because we have got a very interesting thing going on in the background, which obviously we're going to be building up to. But if anybody wants to come in during this week, my kitchen's still getting done, so we're probably not going to be going live Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday for this week. And then after that, hopefully we'll be getting some interviews sorted with a different style, I think. Based mainly around logic and arguments and stuff. If anybody does want to come in, have a chat, see what's going on. There's a conference going on later on this week. I don't know whether we can get anybody to it.
What kind of conference?
It's hard to say. A mind thing, a perception, illusion, how the mind registers information. I'd like to go and listen to it, but I think it's in New York, and I don't think there's a chance that we can get to actually listen to it. And the guy's obviously not getting back to us on Twitter. He's probably planning for his speech. Or I could probably just miss the reply back.
But it would be broadcast somewhere, maybe.
I
Live?
don't
Live?
know. I don't know.
I don't think so. No, I think it's you have to be there live. I think in New York City.
Oh, look at this. I've got see, I've been talking to this guy, and this is an example. We've got Roger Peachy, who is the son of a farmer. He's just a little farmer's boy. But this is again from on the back of Beddy's perpendicular logic and the conclusions people draw. This guy says, no, both local horizontals are perpendicular to the local verticals. So horizontal and vertical are perpendicular. But he says the verticals are not parallel. Well, we know that the horizontals are parallel. But he says the verticals aren't. So one half of this perpendicular isn't applying itself to Beddy's perpendicular logic.
Yes, and he's...
he says horizontals aren't parallel either. So neither of them. So both of them are perpendicular, but they're not parallel.
Yes, and he's using plural, local verticals. So if we have...
Well, they all are local.
Yes, but multiple verticals. It means that we can have more than one. So he's just blatantly contradicting himself.
He then goes on to say, I thought you'd said you'd done a surveying course. Any textbook on surveying will tell you this basic fact. Well, not too sure they are. I don't think there's any basic surveying textbook that tells you that perpendiculars aren't parallel.
Yes, and he will never bring, I think, a quotation from any textbook.
No. And then the farmer's boy says, don't be daft. He's on a wind-up. He's talking about me, even though this guy's the one that's made the ridiculous claim. He says that's all Bev does, antagonise people more intelligent than him for attention, shits and giggles. Well, I admit that everybody probably is more intelligent than me. But isn't that how you find out information from people that are more intelligent than you? You ask them questions. But this guy seems to be saying to me that he's falsifying Euclidean principles. I mean, is that intelligent? I wouldn't say so, but Farmer's Boy seems to think it is. You're more intelligent if you can brush off Euclidean logic. But Farmer's Boy will never come and have a chat. He just does this on literally everything I post on anything, on anywhere on Twitter. I've got a Farmer's Boy. Has anybody else got Farmer's Boys following him? Depends how much you post on social media, right? I think. But I mean, who's told this guy that local horizontals are perpendicular to local verticals, but the perpendicular relationship isn't geometrically transferred to the parallels? Because the sides of a square are perpendicular. And I'm pretty sure we've said this before. If you make a square and make the base of it, stand it up in a vertical plane and make the base horizontal, then aren't those sides perpendicular, both vertical?
Yes, this guy, the curse of Saint Gustav's, he's just contradicting himself. He's saying that the verticals are not parallel, which is contradicting first sentence, and also next sentence is contradicting first sentence, because from first sentence it follows that horizontals are parallel. So he's making this conclusion, therefore, from verticals being not parallel, but these verticals being not parallel are not following from first sentence. So this is completely non sequitur. This is just funny how people don't know how to use basic logic.
And he thinks he can find that textbook.
Yeah, I doubt, but okay. But please, citation.
Yeah, I've been talking to these guys most of the day. We did just have a quick chat with mathematician just before we came in, and we were talking about. Did you hear much of that paper, or did you come in a bit later?
I have heard from you that you talked to some mathematicians, but I have no deep knowledge about that conversation so far.
Well, we were talking about the idea that, you know, knowledge and where it comes from and what occurs if you try and accept a contradiction. And I don't think there's any satisfactory conclusion that anybody's come up with yet. I'm not too sure that there is.
I would say if you have a contradictory conclusion, you cannot have science, knowledge. And from that not knowledge, you cannot create next argument, because in science we have chain of reasoning. So one conclusion becomes premise in next argument. So if your first conclusion is contradictory, then your first premise in your next argument would be contradictory. And it means that you will create paradox immediately. Because if you have premise with contradictory terms, for example, you will always create paradox. So it is dead end.
He keeps posting this as well. Don't laugh. But they've got to get their use out of it. And I think this has been a standard sort of thing for these people to go at. So here we go. It's the same guy, the Curse of St. Custard's. Look what he's using. He keeps talking about flirts. He's really into it. But he's asking people if they found any errors in Jesse Kozlowski's sloping lake, and this guy said that there's a slope to that water there in that lake.
No, there is not.
Yeah, there has to be. There has to be. Over there in the distance, you've got A and B, right? B, the mathematician was telling us this. B has to be lower than A, but also if you swap positions from A to B, then B has to be higher than A. So simultaneously, this is dogmatic globe, right? Simultaneously, you have to be higher and lower than a different position. That's a necessity. That's I would say, a contradiction that you have to hold. At least you have to hold the ability for that to be occurring. And if you don't, I think you're considered a flat earther, to be honest. I think anybody that isn't or doesn't have the ability to take on contradictions is labelled a flat earther. That, in my experience, that's what I've had.
On that picture, we can just see how perspective works. So,
Well,
this,
do you know how far away that is?
it doesn't matter because I I know for a fact that objects are shrinking, and they are shrinking to the level on which they are. So
Okay.
they are not shrinking. They are not converging with the crosshairs.
Okay,
They are
well,
converging.
over on the other side, there is a target claimed
Yeah.
to be at the same elevation.
Yeah.
Right now, that target is around about 8-inch square. Right, with a marker right in the center. That crosshair, is that on the target? I.e., like within 4 inches of the center of the target?
No, it is above.
Okay,
And
now
on the right side.
the distance, so therefore it's at least 4 inches above the center of the target and possibly another 6 or 8 inches above that target. Yeah?
Yeah. And what the distance between target?
Half a mile.
Half a mile. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But nobody ever questions. It's just a picture that somebody's took. Right? You don't even know if that's level. It's a theodolite, so it moves, tilts up and down. There's no marks on there. You can't see what's going on. You just have to trust some angle measurements that somebody's wrote down. Yeah, it's not exactly the best way to measure elevations by measuring angles. But hey, you don't have to trust me. Go and ask a surveyor. See what sort of angles they've measured over what distances. Should be able to do that. It's not going to prove anything other than reality. Like this is what people do to measure reality. What principles do they use? Eric's getting it. Eric says, things being simultaneously higher and lower than each other is impossible and only works on the globe in your mind, if you can get it to work on the globe in your mind. But it has to be. Therefore, it's a proof of the dogmatic globe. Very true. At least Eric's getting it. Dogmatic globe proved. Reducto ad absurdum. It's absurd, yet it's necessary. There's only one model that's built upon absurdities, necessary absurdities. That's the dogmatic globe model. Nothing to do with the real globe. Proofs within reality. So we're going to be going over this week mainly is going to be focused upon knowledge and how do you gain your knowledge? Where does it come from? Do you just copy the shadows on the walls that people are casting? Or do you turn your head, go to the light and work out what's going on? There's a lot of people shouting out shadows, telling you to turn around and look at the shadows. It's up to you whether you want to do that or not. There are some extraordinary arguments, but the problem is there's an arena where these arguments should be taken on, but they can't be. They're too painful. They're not needed within a community of people that are dogmatic globe believers. They cause much pain and stress. That's why Beddy's brought this perpendicular logic. He's brought this logic, and then he's now going to say, well, you agreed with me, but I agreed on his argument. It's Beddy's perpendicular argument. Now I can agree with the perpendicular argument that Saragaki brought. Well, from mathematics. And I can agree to put vertical and horizontal on this perpendicular, because they are perpendicular, vertical and horizontal.
Yes, because you can create a middle term or first premise based on vertical and horizontal, because you know what they are. But with longitude and latitude, that would be questionable. So, because on some maps, they are perpendicular, on other maps, they are not. So, it would not give you certain knowledge creating that kind of argument. But with vertical and horizontal, you are sure that you know what you are talking about. That vertical is straight and horizontal is straight. So they have this orientation, and you can create argument.
You know, when they actually surveyed the land, like Spot On's music said, right? They did a baseline, east-west, and then did perpendiculars. They made a square grid pattern, 6 miles by 6 miles. But they did quite a few of those, right? When they mapped America, they did it in these township blocks, 6 miles by 6 miles, with north, south, east and west being perpendicular. So that's how they actually surveyed the land. Then you can come along afterwards and start looking at the lights in the sky from all of these different positions, can't you? I mean, that's fine. But the actual grid system of the land was already measured. It's already done. All you're doing is coming along and measuring the angle to a light in the sky. Afterwards, after the actual surveying's been done. Not before. This is why I was wondering what Beddy was doing by bringing this argument. Because, like, we are the people that deal with advanced simplicity. You go back to before. What was first? East-west, north-south, baseline, perpendiculars. That's what came first. Actual perpendicular argument that Beddy seems to be making.
Yes, but of course, I would say that longitude lines and latitude lines have nothing to do with surveying.
Hmm. Yeah, which is why Betty, it's a strange argument. I don't know why Betty brought it. Because it causes confusion, because latitude and longitude are similar. They're the same as north, south, east, west, but not quite the same. But what's the difference?
Difference is that they are both expressed as angles. They are not expressed in meters, kilometers, or miles, or whatever. They are expressed with angles. That's the difference between surveying, because surveying is not. You have measurement of distance in straight line, and you have millimeters, kilometers, or whatever, straight line. But longitude and latitude lines are expressed as angles.
Yeah. I've always said at the beginning, even when we put that poll out last week, I didn't answer it, me, because I don't believe angles can be perpendicular to each other. They're just lines, and I don't believe that latitude and longitude are actual lines, so I'm not joining in on the conversation, but I can join in on the argument for perpendicular, which I think is good. I still haven't heard from Beddy yet as to why he brought something that I deem not lines into a perpendicular argument.
I don't know. I would say that, S.E. Montreal said yes, and he agreed with me, because I think this is his purpose to create a new kind of perpendicularity, and so with curved lines, which is impossible. And he tried to do that with that, let's say, argument, this original one. But I would say that it was failed attempt.
Well, I mean, there's failed or whatever, but I think he succeeded in giving us a heads up, let's say, within argument form, but he's given us more than that. He's gave us the ability to understand a model-induced aporema.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And sophistry, because he said that he felt like offended when he told that he's a sophist, because, and this argument is showing that he is a sophist, because one of sophistical tricks is to change meaning of the words. This is basic tool for sophist. And in his argument, this original one, he is trying to mix two meanings of perpendicularity into one, which is impossible. But this is tool of the sophist. So I would say that he is a sophist, and he shouldn't be offended, because he is doing what sophists do. So why he's offended, I don't know.
While I would agree with your assessment that he is a sophist, yes, I would disagree with the idea of trying to mix two different meanings of perpendicular, because there is only one meaning of perpendicular.
Yes, I agree. And then this argument would work. But if I'm referring to what Flat Earth Math said, because he was trying to defend that argument, this original one. But he was inducing this perpendicularity to curved lines. And in that case, it wouldn't work anyway. You cannot do that.
No, that's just a simple law of identity violation.
Yeah, yeah. But this is what sophists do. Yeah, they are using the same word, but in context, it has to be different meaning, or maybe different meaning. And their conclusion is from that different meaning. So they are changing meaning of perpendicularity, and in conclusion, this conclusion about perpendicularity is already changed.
You can't do that though, right?
Of
I
course.
mean,
No,
you have to
that's
point
where
out the
I'm.
ridiculousness of it. It's like saying you can change square. Like saying that you can change perpendicular is exactly the same as you can change square.
Yes, I agree. Yes, but this is what sophists do. Yeah.
Well, he's managed very well then in this case with you, paper, because you're imagining that, that which it is that which it is not, which is absurd, of course, but you're the one saying it. He never said that. So, I mean, it's impossible because there is only one meaning of perpendicular. But when you say that there is potentially some sort of a different meaning, then somebody will maybe even imagine that there may be a possibility of a different meaning, which there isn't.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be pointed out.
Yes, this is what sophists do. Yes, so we work this through reading the sophist. Yes, this is so. From Bebe's argument, someone could make that conclusion that this is proof for perpendicularity of curved lines. Yes. This is how they don't state anything firmly. They will never do that. They are leaving this blurry and not clear conclusion to a receiver. So if you have that kind of argument, if you know what's going on, you will spot that it is contradictory and it is impossible. But someone could be tricked by that kind of argument. That's why I said that he is delivering to Globers. In fact, he's playing with them, not with us.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what it's for. I don't think many people, many flat earthers listen to this. In fact, I'm pretty sure that most people have reached their bridge before they even get here. This goes beyond a lot of people's heads simply because they think we're speaking a different language. But we're not. We're speaking the language of simplicity. It just takes a while to get your mind from that old, I don't like saying it, but programmed way of thought, and to have the ability to think for yourself without having that those people shouting at you to look at the shadows. These geniuses, you can't do that. Well, The secret is you can do that. Everything that's able to be done, you can do. Some people may not be able to imagine these fantastic stuff, but perhaps you can't do it. Perhaps it can't actually be done. Hexaglobia thinks I'm trying to change the meaning of globe with the little, you know, the not that. He thinks I'm trying to change the meaning of a not that into a what? What does that even mean? You know the not that globe. Change the meaning of it. How do you change the meaning of a not that? Why are certain people just lost in their own minds? Nonsensical stuff. They're all upset because whenever I use globe, frantic bunny ears, it means flat earth apparently. So, tis globe is the new... It's the future, I'm telling you. You know what you're saying when you say tis globe, don't you? Apparently they know what you're saying whenever you say tis globe. Dictionary says globe is a sphere. Tis globe. It must be. Has to be. If it says it in the dictionary. Should I be bringing the Tis Globe t-shirts out? On the level, Tis Globe. It's not flat. Tis globe. Ask me about it. How many people would that? I'd probably put people off that, wouldn't it? Tis globe. Ask me.
And Eric Hartle, I would agree, but this Earth is with a small e, not big E in dictionary. Just Earth. Small Earth.
No, that's what I think. That's what Eric's saying. Defines it as the big almighty, you know, big G, big E.
Yes,
it's like
but
a god. It's like that god.
But
That's
you have shown this dictionary entry, and that was, as I remember, small e.
Well, it could be like there's loads of different dictionaries.
Yes, I agree.
Some are favourable, some not so favourable. You know, it's just common usage. And if people want to start worshipping, it's another big G, isn't it? If they want to worship the big G or the big E, I mean, who says you can't? We were talking about faith. I didn't get to say anything, but I would say faith is a belief without proof. Because you can have a belief with proof. It's called knowing. But you can also believe in that which you know. There's nothing wrong with that. You just know as well. But, I mean, if you have no knowing and you believe, then that's faith. You just go with faith. Oh, I don't I choose to not have faith, but I mean, you have to. There's certain amounts. There's limits to it. But
Okay, but you can have faith of which you don't know. But if this thing is proven to be wrong, for example, by creating reductio ad absurdum, that would be stupid faith.
well, I mean, if you've accepted a contradiction into your framework of understanding, then you wouldn't see a reductio ad absurdum. In fact, you may become accustomed to accept a reductio ad absurdum as a proof for yourself. That may be what you paralogize your understanding around. You could build a paracosm around that.
Okay, but that would be faith of unreasonable person. So I can have
It's
faith.
2023.
Yeah, yes, I agree. Yeah.
Mike Jones, that's a good one. The globe, noun, singular. The world, used especially to emphasize its size. The world is the worldview. Tourists from every corner of the globe. That's interesting.
So if globe is a sphere, it has no corners. So.
Yeah, it's contradictory, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly right. Therefore, dogmatic globe, right? Proved. Must be a globe. The globe has corners. Yeah, I think where we're going from here is that there are contradictions that people have been given to deal with, and that's really the reason people have been kept away from what we do, because we show the contradictions that are in modern life. You're never going to get away from them. They're always going to be there. It's how you react to them. And we've been dealing with people who have a severe case of cognitive dissonance, so they don't react well to being shown a contradiction. It sort of fries the brain at the time, and you don't know how to react to it. But the normal idea would be to do away with any contradictions, because there's no such thing as paradoxes or whatever in reality. They're just puzzles to solve. But if you're faced with an impossible puzzle that you have to accept in order to keep your dogma, what do you do? I'd say you just get angry at people that ever challenge that. You know you have no proof. You've been looking for years for it. There is none. But then the key is what proofs do you actually hold? Who has any proofs? Who can talk about them? It's 2023. I don't think many people do have proofs, and I think even fewer can talk about them. We can. I can. I've gained many proofs in the last 4 years. Started off with quite a few to start off with. But I've gained a lot more. Through the conversations in this place. So if anybody does want to come in, the Discord's where it's all about. And this week we will be going over Theaetetus, probably one of Euclid's best works of literature. So we'll be going over that. It's all about knowledge, how you gain knowledge. Who has the knowledge? Where do you get it from? How do you know things? It does seem to be like a story going through Plato's works. So yeah, if anybody does want to come in this week, we will still be doing the things we do all week, and we're going to be aiming towards starting a new thing once my kitchen's sorted and I can get my life back together. Anybody got anything else we need to go over? No. Let me have a quick look.
I mean, the only thing that comes to mind would be the position you're stuck in between the modus tollens and modus ponens, if that's worth going over, if it hasn't been touched on quite properly yet. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the position in the middle of the accepting, affirming the antecedent. Yes, they are perpendicular. And the consequent.
And rejecting conclusion.
Yeah. Because that is the basis of this form of argument. Emma said it right at the beginning when some other dude was trying to mess about with modus tollens. She said, mind your P's and Q's. And that means that the P is the antecedent. The Q is your consequent. And the mind part is the brain work that goes from P to Q. There is a then. There's a necessary continuation from your antecedent to the consequent. It has to happen. You have to be sure of your identity of your P and the consequent too. Identity, that this follows that. Has to. It's a necessary consequent.
Yes. This consequent is from that particular P, not just any P. Because I can say that this would be my P and this would be my Q. No, it has to be a logical link between P and Q. It has to be consequent of that particular antecedent.
And this is why I prefer the if-then statement, because it's much easier to understand, and that is the simplicity of a logical statement. If you can't narrow it down to an if P then Q, then you may be having too many elements within your argument. You want to try and get too much in there. You simplify it, get it down. It's a perpendicular argument. It's not that hard. It can be made into an if then. Well, Betty's trying to get around the fact that these guys are stuck in the middle of a if and a then. They want to affirm one and deny the other. Well, the problem with that is if you say yes P, you say yes Q. And if you say no Q, then you say no P.
Yes, as the same as this guy you brought this. He was talking about this local verticals and local horizontals. This is perfect example. He is affirming antecedent and denying consequent. So that's funny.
Flat Earth Charles is doing it. I mean, I've talked to a few people on Twitter, and to be quite honest, every one of the trolls that I've ever talked to will fall into this. They have to. They have to affirm the antecedent and deny the consequent, especially when you're talking about verticals and horizontals. The problem is, I think, within this arena, flat earthers also get unstuck with the north, south, east and west being perpendicular, because they've put themselves into a model too. And that contradiction has to come. It has to be seen. Now, nobody's saying anything other than Beddy's perpendicular logic will cause cogdis in the minds of anybody who mines their P's and Q's around this argument. But luckily, most people don't give a shit. Why would you? Why do you need to know something about vertical and horizontal being perpendicular? Something you already know. What is it that causes the contradiction? It's the thought of a model. That's it. It's the only thing that causes the contradiction. And I know epohe. I know the geometric argument to give you the proof. All you have to do really is say, because the geometric is north, south, east and west. Are they both the cardinal directions? Are they straight lines? And are they perpendicular to each other? Because the moment you say that, you're going to govern the consequent directly. I mean, how would you check north, south, east and west for being perpendicular? I would have struggled with that, except to watch the video about surveyors. And what they did, they started east-west and did a baseline, and then made a massive grid formation from that, with north and south being perpendicular. So if I was now asked, I would cite the American surveying. I mean, I live in the UK. We have a grid system here, and I've said north, south, east and west. But I mean, it's only a little island, isn't it? I mean, look at America. Go and check. People have been saying, you know, go and ask a surveyor. Go and ask. They laid it out in a grid form where north, south, east and west are grid lines.
Okay, I have to drop work early tomorrow.
Okay.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how where that leaves you in that limbo position, and obviously nobody's going to talk about it.
And I think that's really too bad. I think it's a really interesting topic to go over.
Yeah, but I mean, anybody caught up in that contradiction won't be able to defend their position. So therefore,
Oh,
we'll
definitely.
never talk about it. Hex is saying in the chat there, are all north-souths perpendicular to all east-wests? Or is it a local thing? Which brings it around the difference between local and not local. Like, where isn't local? I don't think there's a thing, is there, Hex? Is there a curved grid line? Is there any such thing as a curved grid?
Sounds to me like an oxymoronic statement, curved grid.
Well, it is said by Hex, but important question. What's a grid? Of what do you mean by pinned? And what is going by? Or do you mean straight out forward, straight out before yourself? North, south, east and west. They're perpendicular. They've laid out a baseline. Within surveying, it's all about that baseline. You start off with a baseline to start off with, and then you work everything from that. But that goes through all of surveying. But what they did was they set out a line east-west. Now, they would obviously have found the best place to start that off with, because that becomes your baseline. That's the line that you work. And then they establish at one point what they call a prime meridian, which is north-south. And then you lay out perpendicular lines in a grid section, 6 miles square, and then later divide that down to 1 mile square. Now those squares are squares. They did that in 1785. Can't get away from it. They did that. Check it out. Got Spartans made a song about it. Your baseline has to be straight. There's no such thing as a curved grid, Hex. Why do you have square grid sections, Hex? In the Midwest of America, when they were plotting it, they called the 6 mile squares, they called a township, and the 1 mile squares they called a plot. The UK maps have grid sections, and all American maps too, it seems. They're called northings and eastings. I think, yeah, there you go. Thank you very much, Eric. Northings and eastings, and then I presume in America, in Canada, you get anybody to confirm? Do you use a square grid. And what do you call those lines? We just have grid north, and I don't know whether we have east west. I think we do. I think we do actually.
And if you need tips on where you could sort of pick up these maps, over here, every single gas station will sell you a road map, either of a local area or more than just your nearby surroundings. And yeah, grids all over those maps as well. So yeah, check out the gas station if you are looking for some maps.
Yep, Eric says state plane coordinate system. Yep, in America we just have one in the UK. Whereas America, big place, has many states that have individual state plane coordinate systems. Some states are massive, aren't they? Yeah, Flag, if you want to come in and have a chat or just get in touch, you've got something going, we'll come over and have a chat. Got plenty of projects on the go. In fact, we've probably got too many projects to keep forgetting about them. Map grids are normally not square. Hex, are you sure you understand what you're talking about? Map grids are always square. Or maybe rectangular. Not curved. See, this is the problem. You get people denying squares. And obviously, model afflicted. Who doesn't know what a square is? A certain group of people who can't actually have squares. Eric, he won't even understand what you're talking about. That's not fair. Necessary consequent of believing they are not squares. Squares are not squares. Square grid map of Paris. Nice. I've got mine. Mine's up on the. I think my topographic math's got a grid on it. But wait, what is a map? Is it a representation of the land, or is it some sort of a weird thing? Because when I hear map, I hear the maps for orienteering, But when these people or other people, I'd say model afflicted people, they think of the whole map of everything. Well, I don't think you can know everything. So therefore, their map is a lot bigger than my map. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't have any such maps. I only have those, like a map of my entire country as in a road map, which, yeah, there are grids all the way from
Yeah.
north to south.
Square.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like the traditional square grid. You know, just a traditional
Yeah.
grid.
And like you say about the UK, like it's the entire country. It's the same here, but I guess it's Europe is only small, right? I mean, you have to check with the Americans. They're the ones with the size, right?
Yeah, they've got a big map. But I mean, I don't think it matters that much anyway. A square's a square, right? I mean,
Yes.
what's the difference between a developable surface and a non-developable surface? Squares won't be squares on a non-developable surface, right?
Absolutely.
In fact, you can't actually have a square on a non-developable surface. The only place you can have a square is on a Euclidean developable surface. It's pretty exclusive to Euclidean space. In saying that, so is the triangle and the straight line. Intrinsically Euclidean.
Did Hex ever go over the 12? I mean, he's never coming back into Discord, but
No. It's painful for them. Like, when we started doing that, that's what led to us finding that, you know, the straight line's where it's at. The model afflicted can't have a straight line. They can't relate one point to another point.
sounds ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's been a fantastic study of the minds of well, I guess it's how you gain knowledge. Like, I first started understanding that there's I called it at the beginning like a block somewhere in, like, your thoughts in your head are rattling round about a pea-sized stuff, and they can't break through to this other area because of something, right? I didn't know what it was, but mainly I thought it was like the self stops you from entering this other realm of thought. But I don't know, like, over this time, how I've always thought that people who can see this expand into this other area of thought seems to have had some sort of trauma. But it's a mind trauma where you've literally hit that rock bottom and wondered how you're going to get past it. But you end up opening your mind to new thoughts. You have to. And it's a breaking down of the old system that you've been given. So there's not going to be, I don't think there's many people that can actually get here, and it may sound like we're speaking a different language. You know, it may sound like you can't get it, but when you do, it's eye-opening. Hex, you don't remember Hex? It's the one that sounds a little bit like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, I do remember he came around here, but it's been a long time by now.
Yeah.
Reduced to text chat trolling instead.
Yeah, most of them. And I don't know what the idea is. It's like a religious ceremony where they have to come and, I don't know what, like, it's to just sort of expel their demons. Birth their wind eggs. Do a little bit of midwifery. It's genius. Right. Anybody got anything else? I know it's a little bit early. We're trying to sell the Discord. Come on in. It's where the conversations happen. There's so much more stuff to go over. I don't feel like you can really let it out in this arena just yet. But we are going to be keying up to hopefully trying to explain this journey that we've been on. And also the beauty of finding a proof. Because once you find the proof for yourself, the whole game changes. It's not a game anymore. It's just life. But you have a proof. Finding out what that proof is changes your life, I think. This arena is probably the strangest place to find it, but if you're going to find it anywhere, this is the place to do it. You question yourself, what proof have you got? You ask other people for proof every day. What proof do you have? And what is it? How do you get that proof? What's it all about? That conversation happens in Discord every day of the week. So please come on in. I'm surprised really that, you know, with all of the smack talk that's been going on with the Blue Marble scientists and Betty's logic, Betty's argument, I hope everybody else is getting the conversation out of it like they should be. If you're not, come into Discord. On the Level Discord.
Yeah, I would say if you're not joining the Discord and not in here, being part of these conversations, you are missing out.
I'm gonna end it up here. We'll probably be back Wednesday. I do have a couple of recorded videos, so if you guys want us to do it, I'll put them out during the week so you've got something to listen to. If there's something better on, let us know and I'll put it out at a different time. What's the better time? Who knows? Yeah, there's a couple of videos I will put out this week. I've added Spot On onto the Buster thing. So I've got spot on ready. Okay, thank you very much for watching. We will be coming back on Friday. Listen out for during in the week. I'll put some videos out. We'll sign out with spot on. Spot on levels, baseline 1785.
Surveyor's life has often been fraught with hardship and danger.
Congress first established the rectangular survey system. Congress, when they started to acquire the land in the Western Territories in the 1800s, had to develop a way of settling that land. When they went out and on top of a high knoll, they established an initial point. From that initial point, they drew a direct east-west line and a direct north-south line.
South from the baseline.